Guardiola plans rebuild, Tuchel faces PSG exit, United want a partner for Maguire, UK fans are allowed back into stadiums, and a transfer roundup all coming up in the next few minutes. As I'm your host, Matt Frolick, you're the OneFootballers, and this is the Daily News. So first up, Manchester City and Pep Guardiola are planning a bit of a rebuild. After signing a contract last week, it's reported that along with this, he gave the club management a list of targets that he would like to sign as he rebuilds his Manchester City team. Now, on that list, of course, Lionel Messi was discussed. It's hardly a rebuild, but it's a pretty important signing. Harry Kane was also discussed after his brilliant performance against them at the weekend. And lastly, Jack Grealish was also on the list. Of course, this is a name that's going to be thrown about because A, he plays for a, well, let's be honest here, he plays for a lower league side in the Premier Division. B, he's a phenomenal player, so of course all the big clubs are going to be linked with him. Last summer it was Manchester United, the summer before it was Spurs, and now it's Manchester City. The thing is, they've kind of jumped on the Jack Grealish hype a little bit too late. I mean, a few years ago, Spurs could have got him for 40 million apparently. Last summer, United could have got him for 70, but now we signed a new contract in September. Everyone knows how great he is, and this could cost City over £100 million. However, having said that, it's not just Guardiola that's interested in bringing him in, as fellow midfielder Kevin De Bruyne also spoke really highly of the English midfielder. After his Belgian side played England last week, he said Guardiola that he is a wonderful guy and he'd be a perfect fit for the Manchester City team. Can we see this deal happening? I'm not entirely sure. Honestly, I still think Manchester City are going to go all out for Messi, and if they spend a lot of money on him, I'm not so sure they're going to be spending huge amounts of money on Jack Grealish. Certainly not without sending somebody first. On top of all this, what does it mean for the likes of Phil Foden? We've always said that since David Silva left, Phil Foden's going to come in and be the future of Manchester City, take over Silva's place, but it's still not quite happening. Despite the fact he's put in some brilliant performances over the international break, he was on the bench again versus Spurs, and without him getting regular minutes, it looks like another signing of another attacking midfielder is only going to push him further down the pecking order. Next up then, and to PSG, and honestly, whenever a manager goes to PSG, it's kind of like, yeah, you got to win the league and win the cups. It's all about what you do in the Champions League that defines your job and your success at PSG. So many managers have come and gone because they have failed to get any sort of success in the Champions League. So Thomas Tuchel facing the sack just months after getting into the Champions League final seems a little bit harsh. But if things aren't going well in the league, then you can kind of see why he may be under a little bit of pressure, especially in the Champions League as well. After defeat on Friday night to Monaco, another defeat to Leipzig in the Champions League, which would leave qualification out of their hands, could be costly for the German coach. I mean, on top of all this, if PSG don't go through at the group stage, never mind make it further into the knockouts, make the final again and win the whole competition. If they don't even get out the group, there really is no excuse for any PSG manager, regardless of how well they've done the few months before. So this could leave Tuchel in a sticky situation and potentially without a job. As for the replacement, again, you're looking at a manager that can come in, will do the business and be able to guide PSG and their wonderful talents to the title, but then taking them further in the Champions League is the be-all and end-all. There was the kind of feeling that it was maybe the little bit of an end of an era, despite the fact that not many players left, aside from the likes of Cavani and Thiago Silva. But as we mentioned before, if Tuchel can't take them far, he can't expect to be in the job for long. Next up then, a bit more transfer news regarding Manchester clubs. It's Manchester United. Apparently they have themselves drawn up a shortlist of players they want to partner Harry Maguire. Now, of all the defenders they've got, the only one they're going to stick with is Maguire, purely because they paid a ridiculous amount of money for him and he's the club captain. But honestly, he could, throughout the whole season, have a worse campaign, worse than Bailly, worse than Lindelof, worse than whoever else they throw into the mix. But they're still going to back Maguire, and it looks like they're going to get rid of another centre-back to bring in someone with a little bit more pace to cover Maguire's faults. Few of the names on this list, well, let's go through them. Jules Koundé is one of the first ones. The Sevilla defender is a pretty phenomenal centre-half, and it looks like Real Madrid have their eye on him. And honestly, I can't see him moving from Sevilla to Manchester United at the moment. The other one is Sergio Ramos, who is yet to be offered a new deal by Real Madrid, and that one as well doesn't exactly scream like the right idea if they want some pace to cover Harry Maguire. Also on the list is Pau Torres of Villarreal, a good signing that would be, although I'm not sure he's quite at that top class level. The other two from the Premier League include Bren White and Chandler Soyuncu from Leicester, but both of those coming from the Premier League will cost a ridiculous amount of money, as United found out when they signed Maguire from Leicester. And lastly, Honestly, the most realistic one is Dayot Upamecano. Not necessarily in the fact he'd be willing to leave a club in the Champions League for Manchester United, who may not make the Champions League this season, but because his release clause isn't exactly that high for a top-class defender. Around 45 million will be enough to do it at the end of the season. That's something Manchester United are regularly used to doing, and on top of this, they'll be able to offer him a huge wage rise as well from his deal at Leipzig, and this is the one out of the 6 names that I've just mentioned that seems the most likely. Next up then, and to UK football fans who are allowed back into the stadium. It's the news you've been waiting to hear. When the lockdown in the UK finishes on December the 2nd, fans will be allowed in, but unfortunately only in very, very small numbers. Now, for those of you who aren't really aware, I don't want to get into it too much, but basically outside of lockdown, the UK is split into 3 tiers on how bad the COVID infections are. There's tier 1, which isn't so bad, tier 2, which is getting worse, and tier 3, which is pretty much on lockdown. Whichever city a tier is in then dictates how many fans are allowed into the stadium, and it's only a very small amount, like I said. For those teams that are in a tier 1 area of the country, 4,000 fans will be allowed in. For tier 2, it's 2,000 fans. For tier 3, it's no fans at all. The issues they face is who gets these tickets? Like, there are some massive games starting the beginning of December with the North London derby between Spurs and Arsenal. There's a 60,000 seater stadium where they're only going to have, who knows, 2,000, 4,000 fans. It's going to be kind of difficult to pick who gets to go to such big important games, and the rest of the country as well. There's massive games going on. But on top of all this, I hesitate to add, it's not for the Premier League clubs. It's not for the big guys. Yes, it sounds ridiculous having 2,000 in a 60,000 seater stadium or whatever. It's for the smaller clubs that need these fans in their stadium to survive, especially in the lower leagues. Like 4,000 or 2,000 could be a massive chunk of their match day income. For some stadiums, that could be not 100% capacity, but quite a large amount of what they regularly would get. And on top of all this, if the big Premier League teams don't have any fans in their stadiums, or just in general the fans don't want to go to these big stadiums because there's not going to be much of an atmosphere, it may tempt them to go to their local club and spend some money and keep the lower league football in England alive, which I think is a fantastic thing. Lastly then, we come to a quick roundup of the rest of the day's news that you might have missed, and somehow Alan Pardew has got another job. He is a technical director at CSKA Sofia in Bulgaria. Alongside this, and Alan Halilovic, you guys remember that name, who was a Barcelona youngster at one stage, tipped for big things. Well, he was without a club and is now signed for Birmingham in the Championship, aged 24. Real Madrid and Inter Milan are apparently in talks in a swap deal regarding Isco and Christian Eriksen. And finally, Mohamed Salah has tested negative for coronavirus, means he is back in the Liverpool squad for the Champions League this week. That's all from me then. Make sure you let me know your thoughts below and check out everything else we've got going on OneFootball here. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.